Our next speaker is Brian Corcoran, KCS Certified Expert and Global Support Evangelist at SearchUnify, where he's also a regional sales manager. His talk is Agentic AI and Enterprise Intelligence, Redefining Search for Autonomous Knowledge Flow. He brings in over a decade of experience in helping support and services teams. Blend agent and AI capabilities to create differentiated customer experiences at scale. So he's going to give us tips on how Agentic AI is transforming enterprise search into a dynamic, autonomous knowledge ecosystem. That sounds great. Welcome.
Yeah, it should be fun. Thanks, Kim. All right, morning, everybody. All right, so last day, I think this has been a great conference for everybody. If you did the walking tour in DC, hopefully you stopped by and got one of our scarves at the booth, hopefully keeping your necks warm. So we'll keep this a quick talk. Obviously, we only have 15 minutes, and we can kind of skip this slide, but just a little about me. I've cut my teeth in knowledge management and knowledge-centered service for the last 15 years. Knowledge-centered service is basically a methodology that started with support organizations and focusing on using knowledge and making knowledge the key asset of the organization, right? So I think we all have a vested interest in how we are enabling our coworkers, our customers, our partners, and even our end users to leverage knowledge within their workflows seamlessly and effortlessly. And a little bit about SearchUnify. So SearchUnify is an enterprise agentic AI platform, and we started on a bedrock foundation of search, right? And so that was the problem that we initially focused on solving for our customers, is that you have disparate sources all throughout the enterprise, whether it's customer use cases, employee use cases, partner use cases. How can you ensure that people are actually finding the information within their workflow to get their job done seamlessly and effortlessly? A couple things to call out in terms of recognition from KMWorld. We've been a trend-setting product for the last couple years, and we're also a KMWorld Reader's Choice Award winner. So our use cases tend to run the gamut of workspace use cases, service use cases, website use cases, and e-commerce. So our perspective at SearchUnify is that search really is no longer a product, and I think that that's pretty table stakes for everybody in this room, but the way that we feel about it is that it's really become the service layer between autonomous AI agents and dynamic knowledge. And so we have to ask ourselves, how well are customers integrating companies integrating Gen AI into their employee and customer workflows? And the key thing that we found, and obviously citing some of the MIT research, is that the majority of AI pilots are still stuck in this experimental phase. And there's a lot of insights out there about AI pilots and how successful or unsuccessful, or if they're being stalled, within that pilot phase. What we're seeing is that when we work with our clients and they are trying to take these large AI platforms and apply them to different granular use cases, these generic AI tools don't integrate well within these workflows. So it limits the transformational success. And success that we find with our customers tends to come from domain specificity and deep workflow integrations. One of our key tenets or key pillars that we have at SearchUnify is working with customer support organizations. So this is really still one of the key proving grounds for the value of generative AI, and the solutions that we've built over the years have been really tailored toward those use cases. And we can see that because we laid the groundwork with search and knowledge creation and productivity tools before large language models, all we're able to do is just add large language models on top of those solutions and then start further accelerating value for these variety of use cases. And I think the key thing that's very interesting, and not to just take the pro vendor side, even though I am a vendor, is that if you are working with a vendor, odds are your AI project has a greater chance of being successful. And a lot of folks that we work with in the space are customers who have tried to develop their own solutions. One of the key things that they realize is that by the time they develop these internal in-house AI solutions, they have to start competing with the rest of the market, who is actually focused on developing these solutions 24/7. So there are some good things that are coming, although it's not the greatest news to different enterprises, but a lot of knowledge workers are using shadow AI solutions in their workflows, right? So 68% of employees are using free tier AI solutions like ChatGPT and Perplexity. I would imagine that a lot of us in our personal lives are using those solutions, or we may even be guilty of using shadow AI. I'll raise my hand and say I definitely am. So, for your organization, just show of hands. Are you using the generative AI capabilities that your organization has rolled out, or do you have a tab open with Perplexity or ChatGPT, and you're actually using that as part of your workflow instead? Both. Well, it's good that there's both, right? So I think it is encouraging that organizations are waking up to the fact that there are reliable AI solutions out there. It's just, how do you actually integrate them into your workflows? So, I think the key thing is when we were talking about 10x with different, different use cases and different verticals, 10x for insurance could be cloud, right? So the concept of even having a personalized GPT experience grounded on your own content kind of seems like a future state approach, but many organizations are actually deploying that today. So I think the key thing that we want to make sure of is that if people are using these shadow solutions, they can't be putting their sensitive data into these free offerings, because then it becomes part of the larger training model. And 81% of organizations report that they actually lack visibility in how these shadow AI tools are being used. So that creates more of an impetus to actually start investing in getting your employees, your customers, to adopt your solutions that are grounded on your content and have the right permissions, and then you can actually track how these users are actually consuming knowledge through these workflows. So if we take a look at these companies, there's every company up here, we would certainly recognize their logos, and we have to ask ourselves, what do these companies have in common? Well, other than being, very, very well-known brands across different industries, they've all banned their employees from using ChatGPT. So with that in mind, how do you enable this autonomous knowledge flow for your organization, especially if you're facing a mandate where you shouldn't be using these external tools? How do you combat shadow AI? And that's where you need to consider the evolution of knowledge-driven workflows. So many organizations that we work with are still in this first phase where there's disconnected knowledge all throughout the enterprise. And this could be different teams, different verticals, different industries. This is still a very, very common challenge where there could be 8 to 9 systems or even more than that where end users are going to find information. We've been working with some of our clients that even have upwards of 60 different sources. So you can imagine how everybody's web browsers look with infinite tabs open. So the first step is to actually install an enterprise search capability that actually unifies this information into a single interface. From there, once you're actually able to create a single pane of glass for your end users where they actually are seeing relevant knowledge across these disparate systems in a reliable place, then the next step is to look at co-pilots, such as how to capture knowledge within a workflow, or for a customer support use case, how to do intelligent response assists, how to facilitate intelligent swarming and collaboration. And then once we actually start getting that foundation correct, then you can start looking at moving to more of an autonomous knowledge flow. So if we look at this in 3 different steps at SearchUnify, we talk about find, assist, and act as the key way to actually start achieving these sorts of knowledge outcomes. And so the first thing is just the single pane of glass for knowledge, right? And oftentimes that's unified search. So we can see here that you have your search results, you have a variety of content sources that are all being delivered to stack relevance, and then you actually have a plugin with a large language model. And at SearchUnify, we have an open large language model integration, but we always advocate a closed large language model. The last thing that we would ever want to have happen is that your search queries, how you consume content, is actually going out to ChatGPT or Anthropic Claude or any LLM out there, and it becomes part of their larger training set. So you shouldn't be using large language models for their knowledge capabilities. You should be using them for their linguistic capabilities. And so that often takes shape in the form of RAG pipelines. So once we establish that we have predictability and finding the right content and actually being able to use generative AI even in this era of find, we're showing end users that content that you did not know exist is findable, but then there's answers that are based on that content. So if we think back to Shadow AI, going out to a chat GPT, asking questions, getting answers, seeing those sources, imagine that you do that with your own content within your own organization. The next step is, well, what do we do when we run across different knowledge gaps, right? Because all generative AI outputs are derivative in nature. They have to come from somewhere, or else you're going to get the hallucinations that we all fear. And so we have a variety of different ways that we support this, but one of our products is called Nobler. And basically what it does is that it can sit in any requester-responder interaction. Customer support interactions, IT help desk, HR, legal, and even thinking about using existing corpuses of knowledge. So imagine that we have 2 or 3 different knowledge articles or files from SharePoint or our website, different policies. What if we actually need to aggregate those into a new knowledge artifact? Again, that's where we're using the large language model for its linguistic capabilities. So we're saying, take this content, take the merits of this interaction, let's create a knowledge artifact that we can actually then put into our knowledge base and then reuse. And at SearchUnify, I'll just say it, we don't have a knowledge base. We believe that every organization has invested in their different applications, and we should be helping those organizations aggregate that knowledge back into your source systems. And then that way, you're not having to just buy a new knowledge base just to get generative AI capabilities. So this actually reinforces trust in your existing content sources because we're actually fortifying those and making them stronger the next time a search has to happen. And last, if we think about getting find and assist correct, then we go into the third phase, which is called act. And this is where you can get the autonomous knowledge flow. So imagine having a Perplexity or ChatGPT style experience that is based on your content and knows your workflows. So a lot of the work that we see is more for customer support, but also intranet use cases where we want to basically have an intelligent concierge that's able to recognize, hey, what was our workflow? What were we working on? Can we actually just pick back up? Can we personalize these knowledge delivery experiences where we feel that this is really an experience that is designed for me as an end user? And I think that this is where a lot of our clients are really beginning to aggressively pivot, is that they figured out search. They've recognized, again, that search can still be viewed as a product, especially when you're looking at different applications, whether it's self-service or internal search or SharePoint, for example. But then how can you start making that more predictive? How can you recognize the intent of the user, connect them with the right content, or understand their workflow? So in this example, we can see that there's some technical issues that we're working through. This is an IT help desk use case, and then we can see that there's actually some follow-ups in terms of latency reports. So I think the key thing is that if you want the knowledge to flow in an autonomous nature, you have to take stock in terms of what knowledge you have, how that knowledge is already being consumed, what the gaps are, how to fill those gaps, and then you can start automating that into a seamless delivery. But at the end of the day, you still need these feedback points with your end users because humans have to be in the loop for all of this. Right? Even with our knowledge creation capabilities, we have many organizations that want to automate parts of that creation process, but we're shifting people from being creators to reviewers. We're eliminating the scaffolding work of having to create knowledge by recognizing the workflow that these users are going through. We're then able to help them seamlessly create that knowledge and then put it back into the unified index. And that way, the next time a similar knowledge worker has a similar question that they're trying to answer, they'll be able to get it answered on the spot, as opposed to going through, working through different people, different processes to try to get that answer. So I think the key thing that we find is that if you want knowledge to work properly, you have to focus on your people and process. You need to make sure that you're getting the knowledge back into your index, and then from there, at that moment of need, this can be deployed anywhere. It just becomes a focus of being where your users are with the knowledge to help them succeed. And I think that we're in a very exciting time where people are now really, really understanding that it's really a new world when it comes to how we can actually take what we see out there in our consumer lives by using ChatGPT and Perplexity and actually bringing that to our own enterprise. So I'm right at time. Really appreciate you hearing me out. If you have any questions or want a SearchUnify scarf, we still have extras, I believe. So feel free to meet me in the corner, and hope you have a good rest of your morning and afternoon at KMWorld.